dropped me this piece from the unredacted version of the affidavits. We're going to read that together right now, as soon as I pull it up on a bigger screen, that is. By the way, my apologies to channel friend Hells Monroe, spelt with a Z. Z for New Zealand in that sense, and I mistakenly, not knowing, referred to her as my Aussie friend. Big correction, she's a Kiwi. Important in this distinction because apparently Joss Larkins, YouTube in the Australia's most notorious serial animal abuser, as she was referred to in court, and violator of children's boundaries, who's also covering the Jack and Lily case under a channel called Ninchi True Crimes, is posting up how she's calling the OPP on me, and they're going to come enforce some sort of privacy laws. Friends, you should see how bad they've been trying to privacy strike my videos to no avail. I didn't do anything wrong. You did. It's a notorious case worldwide. Oh, but you want your privacy, don't you? Well, that's too bad. See, Ninchi, you should just come forward and beg for the public through a proper apology and acknowledgement for your actions. Not enforce all kinds of ridiculous things on other people. You don't have, your elevator doesn't go quite all the way to the top. Now we know why. We know all about you. You can find a link, and I'll post this screenshot in my community section, and you can have a look for it for yourself in the future. Just scroll down. This is a screenshot, July 12th, 2025. 12th, TH. Constable Himmelman and Constable Robinson obtained a statement from Emily Ogley, Ogley, Emily, said she is Hayden's girlfriend. They were staying at Patty's, and she woke up to the phone call saying the children were missing. They went out there and started to help search. She went with Hayden and Haley in the woods. They drove around. They saw kids' clothing hanging on a tree. They got out of the car. We went looking for them. They didn't touch them because they thought it might be evidence. Emily said there were 2 t-shirts and a blanket. The blanket was hanging in the tree, and the clothes were on the ground. Emily took photographs as soon as they got out of the car. They drove back and asked Malaya if the clothing belonged to the kids. Malaya said the blanket belonged to Lily, but the clothing did not. They then told the police, who went to investigate. Emily looked the data from the photographs, and she saw they were taken on May 2nd, 2025 at 3:24 p.m. So now we're going back to Brandon's statement to refresh your memories here and now, so you don't have to rely so much on your memory to my other videos, although you can find them in a link to a new playlist, both from Joss Larkins and this key witness, Brandon Lemieux, under my playlist section, or here in the information bar. It used to be the information bar. You just need to scroll down on your mobile device. I'll link them up here. Make sure you check them out. But I'll read it. We're going to go through it again. So, and I'm going to read his entire statement because, well, it's better. He's talking in his letter on May 2nd, 2025. He left his home in approximately, scroll down, approximately 10:10 a.m. So roughly around 3 minutes after the call came in to the RCMP, according to their documents. I know this because my fiance was home on her work break, which runs from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. At the time, I was loading my truck to go fishing at Gairloch Lake. We spoke briefly before I left. Says Gairloch Lake's approximately 12 to 15 minute drive from my home. As I was arriving at the lake, I heard a vulnerable persons broadcast, meaning over police band radio, regarding two missing children in Lansdowne. I just put that in, that's what I'm assuming. He says he heard the vulnerable persons broadcast regarding two missing children in Lansdowne. At roughly the same time, I observed a helicopter conducting what appeared to be a search pattern, cloverleafing in the area. Given my military background, it was immediately apparent to me that an active search operation was underway. Brandon, do you want to further go in or explain how you came to learn about the situation during that time? Let me know in a future communication. But the meat of this story is what he witnessed. This is what we want to get to. Rather than continue with my fishing plans, I decided to drive through the area to see if I could assist in keeping an eye out for the children. For context, I am not a neighbor, family friend of either party, a member of PBMH, or affiliated with any official search organization. However, I served approximately 10 years in the Canadian Armed Forces as a combat engineer. Such a cool job. Search operations were a significant part of my training and experience. Throughout my military service, I participated in numerous searches involving personnel, explosives, weapons, and other objectives. I've also assisted the RCMP in the past in 3 other searches for missing persons. As I traveled through the area, I observed a bright pink child's t-shirt hanging in a tree near Earl Martell's property. A 4-wheeling trail just past his home on the right-hand side that goes way up the hill, and near the pipeline area on Lansdowne Road. To be clear, this was on Lansdowne Road, Jamie, not Lansdowne Station Road. What stood out to me was the condition of the shirt. It appeared clean and was not muddy, wet, or dirty despite the weather and the ground conditions. In other words, meaning that it hadn't been there very long. It wasn't put there last year and been through all kinds of weather. It was recent, fresh, it's very bright. It appeared clean and was not muddy, wet, or dirty despite the weather and ground conditions. I also did not observe the children's footprints or observe children's footprints beneath it or any obvious trail leading to or from the location. I also observed Emily Ogley emerge from the wooded area at a rapid pace. She was not casually walking. She came out of the woods quickly, moved through the ditch, and entered the rear seat of the vehicle. My attention was primarily focused on Alvin MacKenzie, who was nearby. My interaction with Alvin was brief. After leaving the area and traveling towards where the helicopter had landed, I later observed the same dark wine-colored 4-door vehicle parked along the roadside. As I approached, Emily appeared interested in speaking. I pulled alongside the vehicle and rolled down my window. She asked whether I was police, which was the same question Alvin had asked earlier. I advised her that I was not afraid, that I was simply there to help search for the children. I then asked what they were doing in the area. Emily stated that they were family from Truro and were looking for the children. I wished them luck and continued on my way. Shortly afterward, I observed the vehicle turn right onto Stewiacke Road and headed seemingly back towards Truro. I also took note of how both Emily and Alvin were dressed. Emily was wearing jeans, running shoes, and a tank top with thin shoulder straps. Alvin was wearing a t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. Anyone present that day knows the weather was damp, cold, and muddy. Their clothing stood out to me because it did not appear consistent with what most searchers were wearing under those conditions, or any experienced searcher or woodsman for that matter. This was a rapid response last minute to the aid in the cover-up and plant evidence from both families. I'll repeat that last part. This was a rapid response last minute to aid in the cover-up and plant evidence from both families. No, that's what you witnessed. Basing off of what Emily Ogley stated, there's no doubt in my mind that you witnessed them plant that evidence And Alvin being there, and especially dressed like that, would indicate that he was up to something other than searching for the kids that had trudged out. First thing you do is grab your coat and boots. So who was the driver of that car, I wonder? After orienting myself in the area and speaking with law enforcement, I returned home to collect additional equipment, including rain gear and my ATV. Yeah, you were first there in your truck, you said. I should get that straight. Then you went back home, grabbed your ATV, and came back. You then returned and participated in search efforts that ultimately continued for several months, extending into November. And he's got a fantastic map, friends. I'm gonna do it justice. We need to do a live stream and do some talking. Following the initial days of searching, I expanded my efforts beyond the immediate search area and followed up on numerous tips provided by members of the public. These included locations such as Lairg Cemetery Road, the Lairg Road under near Gairloch Brook Falls, and several other sites brought to my attention. Remember, all kinds of sites around there. Bradley Wong was an eyewitness to listening to mainly one car, Daniel's car, all through that night, in a different car in the final trip. Going, and he could hear it in earshot. It was all they're stopping within earshot of Brad Wong's house. Throughout this period, I maintained communication with members of the Northeast Nova Major Crimes Unit regarding information and observations that I believed were relevant. Well, I'm not a police officer and do not work in law enforcement. We share the same objective: finding answers regarding what happened to these children. Based on my observations that day, I developed concerns regarding the circumstances surrounding the pink shirt and the behavior of certain individuals present in the area. Those concerns were reported to the police as part of my statement. Based on my observations that day, I developed concerns regarding the circumstances surrounding the pink shirt and the behavior of certain individuals present in the area. Well, do you know what, Brandon? This really answers the question I ended with yesterday about what you think of the pink blanket, because it was all part and parcel in the same area. It's all kind of one in the same report, misstrewn and twisted. And you caught the person, man, that's so juicy. You caught the person who was responsible for leading people right to the piece of evidence. And you witnessed them planting it. Such a mind blower. You're such a hero, dude. You're a true Canadian hero, dude. You are blowing my mind, man. Wow. This Brandon Lemieux is going to get medals. He's going to get the keys to Lansdowne County. He'll probably pick them up at Darren Getty's house. Maybe they confiscated the key in the raid. Brendan, can you effing imagine this? So you say around 10:40 a.m. Cool. That's your time frame. But let's just think about what it is that you saw that morning. Emily running out clothed with a halter top on type of thing, a spaghetti strap top. She was obviously out in the bush doing something. You know, it's amazing in these circumstances how children ultimately lead to breaking cases. I recognize that others may disagree with my conclusions. However, everything I have consistently reported is based on what I personally observed on May 2nd, 2025. My interest has always remained the same, helping locate the children and assisting in any way possible. Let's go down a little bit here. The public can draw its own conclusions. My responsibility has been to provide an honest and accurate account of what I witnessed. I also want to address a separate matter. Talks about how he doesn't mind if I read this publicly. Yeah, he's genuinely concerned about the safety of his family. He's received death threats, numerous anonymous messages. Your fiancée has been doxxed, as have her 2 underage children. Why anyone would target people who have simply tried to help is difficult for me to understand. Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're starting to understand, aren't we there, Joss? For that reason, I would appreciate it if any requests from an email address, phone number, home address, or any other personal information were immediately shut down. Noted. Earlier today, I had a conversation with MCU regarding comments and information being circulated about me by Teabagger, Shenanigans, Daniel, Martell, and Joss Larkins, Jocelyn Gay Larkins, Ninchi True Crime. They were not impressed with what was being discussed or shared publicly. I also want to make something absolutely clear to the social media crowd. I am not Daleen. I am not Chrissy Travers. I have never met either of them. Yes, I've spoken with them and have corresponded regarding aspects of the case and shared information. However, we have all gone our separate ways and pursued our own paths. I had a big talk with Mike today, by the way. Mike DeMann up on Facebook. Personally, I have no issue with either of them, despite the amount of criticism and speculation directed towards them online. I believe they are well-intentioned individuals. Unfortunately, there are people involved in this case who appear more interested in personal gain, concealing their true identities, online attention, and what I would describe as tragedy profiteering, than figuring in answers. Because of that, I take many public claims and accusations with a healthy degree of skepticism, as should you all. Beyond that, I have nothing further to say regarding those individuals. I work for no one but myself. Everything I've done in relation to this case has been on a volunteer basis. I also ask all to try and remain patient with the investigation. If it hasn't been obvious to the public yet, it should be now. And that is, there is a significant amount of disinformation being put out there intentionally to throw folks like myself and the RCMP off, and we need patience. Dude, you sound like a cop, bro. It's okay. Now, you didn't need the K. The K's silent there since everybody wants to start correcting everybody. No E pronunciation in Stewiacke Road. Well, there's no K pronunciation. That's no, like, as in I know that. Yet it should be now without the K, not no. He's allowed. It's fine. No worries. Thank you very much, Brendan. You're a goddamn hero. Wow. Wow. Wow! On my community wall, y'all, to make sure you go and check it out, read it for yourself. So it's interesting too, friends, that these stories that Brendan's telling and people are concerned about is being acknowledged by Daniel. That the events themselves happened, but nobody can ever quite get and put a time slot or which day it was correctly. Everybody's a little cloudy when they're trying to tie a timeline to any one event. That's significant. But I'm not saying that it's acceptable to forget. It might be in the moment with in the conversation as you're relaying information as it's going, but I'm saying what you're hearing is nobody is willing or don't know what time to put to this Dodge that Daniel had crushed. And he's talking about how the police are even asking him about it. So it's a valid occurrence. His statement reads, when Daniel was doing an interview on another channel, he said the vehicle got stuck in the mud in the bush days before Jack and Lily went missing, not the night of, and he wanted it crushed before the dogs showed up. That's not suspicious at all. He keeps digging a bigger hole. Holy mackerel. He said that. Yeah, apparently. Charlie says, hidden hand, he explained his vehicle would not pass inspection for a sticker because the car was badly damaged due to salt. So why keep it in the yard? Because there were so many other cars there. So crush it before the dogs come. He just went on and on about it. He said he was asked by the RCMP, why did you crush your vehicle, Danny? So they're definitely onto him, in my opinion, says Charlie. That's interesting. Maybe we should talk about that live later. I didn't know anything about it, but I just hear people talking about it. So I brought the question up to Mike, and Mike seems to know all about this, more so than I do, about this Alex Penny and his brother who just died in 2023. And this guy who just died in 2023 looks a lot like Justin in that sense. Not the person who's passed or whose body that they were found in the mine. He died 10 years before this other person. Oh, hold on. You're right, Hidden Hand. Good memory and connection made to the commenter who said Janie and Daniel dissed the neighbors. How could I forget? Anita, the neighbors, and Brandon. Everyone who comes forward as a witness, they try to discredit using the same tactics. Interesting to juxtapose that with who they praise, the bus driver and the military fellow who let Daniel search when he shouldn't have. Who else am I missing? Let Hidden Hand know in the comments below. Yeah, Hidden Hand, it seems so. So we have Wayne confirming what Anita's saying, that the children were not being fed. She says she never seen a baby so skinny. Right. Yeah, Wayne's in there. So we have Wayne's statements, which are, for the short couple minutes that he made them, are significant. Unfortunately. No, actually, KD did. Just not up on listen, here's the comment. The only ones who actually know are Daniel and Malaya. Janie knows something happened but has no first-hand knowledge. The reason he hasn't been caught is because other people don't have any knowledge of what went on in that trailer that night. Not at all. It's that this investigation is so intensive with the sheer amount of people who need to be investigated. It's a large file in that sense. It's not the fact that, there's no smoking gun, but it's overwhelming amount of what they call negative evidence in relation to all of this that ties them to something greater. And it's just a matter of time before the story builds itself. Now, hold on. Whereas Truth says both sides are definitely involved and there are a number covering up. As I had thought for a long time, my eye is on M and the guiltiest party. It's sad that people still think she's working with the RCMP or she's some sort of victim. No. Think long and hard. If one rats the other out for a plea deal, they would implicate others, and that's why no one is ratting anyone out. I've said this for months. One just has to look at the year that has gone by to see that there is a big cover-up and that not just two people know what happened. You have M's side as quiet as mice and not pleading for the children, and if any of them thought that only DM did something, it would be a different story today. And then you have DM's side not pointing at Malaya because they are covering up too. Also, you have a friend of M's coming out with DV at the onset of the case, and I always thought, oh, here we go. That's going to be her defense, and if she goes down for the disappearance, also, you have the big publicity agenda surrounding Malaya the past 3 months. Both are involved and have implicated others. You just have to use your eyes and ears to see what is going on. Fabulous comment. Now, my questions are, did any of this have to do with CPS and that Lily and Jack were talking too much at school, etc.? Was there a CPS visit due that Thursday or Friday AM? Was this premeditated? Or is it how I think and how that it is M snapped, and judging from her comments, I was tired, I was overstimulated, and Jack and Lily were hyper and excited before bed. Of course, none of us know yet and may not know for a long time. We all have that same kind of query at the back of our mind. The one thing I think we all can recognize is how just unwanted Jack and Lily were in their new environment here on Garlock Road. They didn't have another side of the family, Belinda's side of the family. They didn't have a father in their lives anymore. He stopped paying child support for the first little bit. It was right, their new little situation. Then he stopped. And that was very isolating for the kids. There was no more tie. The more time went on, the less Daniel wanted her involved, according to her. She acknowledged the fact that there was hard drug use. We have Patty. The more that we find out about the greater family, the worse that they look in this situation. Patty, you're a disgusting individual. Pervert yourself. enabling this debauchery to go on under your roof. Jack and Lily really got the brunt of all of this. I'm so sad for the situation and lives that they had to live, their very short lives. You know, the probability is really high that they were being sedated, in my mind. But it also could be secondary, because there's violence involved as well. Could be either or. Till we get some sort of confession, we're not really going to know. It's not important, because they're still criminally responsible, and there's still plenty of investigating and things to do and breaking of the reality of this situation. Yeah, thank you so much, Brandon. What an eye-opener. It's so very counterproductive, and it's counterproductive to all of the work that these scoundrels, the suspects, have generated for themselves up to this point. Right down to you fools, Kent. That whole little congregation of idiots. All related, all family, all covering for one another. None of them really want Jack and Lily, one, to be found, or for any justice or resolution to come to this case. That's another sad truth that we've come to learn. 30 minutes in, hit that thumbs up, friends. Leave a comment down below and let's get this conversation started. There's so many accurate things to speak about now that we have people like Anita and Brandon coming out. Their stories align so well with Bradley Wong's and the scenario that was there to begin with. Man, I'm proud of this Brandon Lemieux. Fantastic.